Look closely at this painting of hell, and then notice something strange. There are no lakes of fire stretching to the horizon, no pits of endless flame. Instead, a tavern, a card game, a song, a signature on a contract. This is one of the most terrifying images ever painted, and almost everything inside it is ordinary. 500 years ago, a Dutch painter built hell not out of fantasy, but out of daily life. Yours, mine, and somewhere in the middle of all this torment, one figure is doing something none of the others do. He is looking directly at you. We'll come back to him, because once you see who he might be, you won't be able to look away. This is the right wing of the Garden of Earthly Delights by Bosch. It hangs today in the Prado in Madrid. The whole work tells a story across 3 panels: paradise on the left, a garden of pleasure in the centre, and then this, the price. It's the consequence panel. Everything the people in that garden enjoyed, they are now repaying. And it is one of the only paintings in Bosch's entire surviving catalogue that scholars never argue about. The hand is his, that much is certain. But here is the question that should unsettle you. When you imagine hell, you imagine fire. Bosch knew that too. So why did he fill his hell with the most familiar things in the world: instruments, taverns, games, contracts? Start with the music. A man is stretched across the strings of an enormous harp, splayed, pierced, crucified on an instrument. Below him, a lute, a hurdy-gurdy, a drum with a soul trapped inside it. These aren't decorations. In Bosch's hell, the instruments are the torture devices. The Prado itself calls this the musical hell, and the meaning scholars draw from it is quietly devastating. Music pleasure, celebration, the sound of a good night has been turned against the people who loved it. The thing you enjoyed becomes the thing that punishes you. Now look to the side. A toppled table, dice, cards, a backgammon board, and the gamblers around it being run through with blades. Inside the body of that strange, broken creature at the centre, we'll get to him. There is a tavern. People still drinking. Gluttony, served by demons. And then there's this. A monster with the head of an owl, wearing a cauldron like a crown, seated on a kind of toilet. It swallows the greedy whole and expels them into the pit below. Beside it, a man excretes gold coins into the same cesspool. The message is not subtle. This is the punishment of greed. Avarice, made literally filthy. Here is what makes all of this heavier than a parade of monsters. The man who painted it believed it. Bosch was not a madman, and not as legends later claimed some medieval drug dreamer. He was a respected, prosperous citizen, a sworn member of an elite religious brotherhood devoted to the Virgin Mary. A man who paid his dues, attended his confraternity, and was buried with honour. To him, this wasn't a fantasy. To him, and to everyone who first stood before this panel, hell was real as the tavern down the street. This painting wasn't entertainment, it was a warning about them. And as you keep looking, you start to notice a pattern, a logic underneath the chaos. Here, a giant hare walks upright like a hunter carrying a bleeding human trussed to a pole, the way a hunter carries home a deer. The prey has become the predator. The hunter is now the hunted. Once you see it everywhere. Animals punishing people, the weak overpowering the strong. A medieval idea called the world upside down, where sin doesn't just get punished, it inverts the entire natural order. And then Bosch breaks the one rule you were sure of. Part of his hell isn't fire at all. It's ice, a frozen lake, figures skating. One man has fallen through the thin ice and clings to his own skate as the freezing water takes him. Hell, here, is fire and cold, comfort itself inverted, which brings us to the most famous secret in this entire painting, and one of the most misunderstood. Look here. On the body of one of the damned, beneath the instruments there appears to be music, actual notation, written on a staff, on a man's backside. A few years ago, this went viral. A student transcribed it, recorded it, and called it the 500-year-old song from hell. It spread across the internet. People still share the recording today. But here's the truth most people never hear. She wasn't the first to try. Musicians had transcribed these marks decades earlier, and the notation has no clef. Without a clef, the notes have no fixed pitch. There is no way to know what, if anything, it was meant to sound like. Even she later admitted the likeliest answer. Bosch probably wasn't writing a real song at all. He was painting the appearance of music to mock it, a final humiliation. The sinner who lived for songs now scored across his own body like sheet music for the choir of hell. The painting, it turns out, is more honest than the legend built around it. And now the figure we left at the beginning. At the very centre of all this torment stands the strangest creature Bosch ever painted. His body is a cracked eggshell, hollow. Inside it, that tavern. His legs are bare tree trunks, and they end not in feet, but in two small boats, drifting on dark water. On the disc above his head, demons parade around a giant bagpipe. He is broken, rooted in nothing, empty, and his head is turned, away from the chaos, toward us, in a painting where every single soul is consumed by its own punishment, screaming, drowning, devoured. This one figure is calm. And he is looking directly out of the canvas, at the viewer, at you. For a long time, some scholars have wondered something they admit they can never prove, that this face, this quiet, sidelong, almost knowing expression, is Hieronymus Bosch himself, a self-portrait. The artist placing his own face at the dead centre of hell. We can't confirm it. No certain portrait of Bosch survives from his lifetime to compare it to. It remains an interpretation, a beautiful, haunting one. But think about what it would mean, that the man who painted this hell did not stand outside it, pointing at sinners. He placed himself inside it, among the damned, looking back out not at the demons, but at the living, at everyone who would ever stand before this painting and feel safe. This is what makes Bosch's hell so much more frightening than fire. He didn't paint a place far away. He painted here. The tavern, the song, the card game, the contract you sign without reading, the mirror you look into too long. He took ordinary life and showed it to you as eternity, and he left one face in the middle of it watching the living, possibly his own. 500 years later, the demons have lost some of their terror. The owl monster looks almost absurd now, but that gaze still works, because it was never really about hell. It was about being seen, about the quiet suggestion that the line between the garden of pleasure and the world of punishment is thinner than we'd like to believe, and that someone, from inside the painting, already knows which side we're standing on. There is still more hidden in this panel than any single story can hold. That letter, stamped on the great knife above the tree man, no one has ever agreed what it means. And beneath the paint itself, hidden in the underdrawing, restorers found a figure Bosch chose to erase. A man who was once in this hell, and whom Bosch, for reasons we'll never know, painted out. But those are mysteries for another time.